So good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, my lovely guests. Good afternoon. It's just so awesome to have you here today. And so this is EdTalk, and EdTalk, as we know, and as the name implies, we look at things regarding education, challenges, solutions, innovative ideas, and things like that. And from time to time, we bring in people, different stakeholders. We talk to parents, we bring in teachers, sometimes students, sometimes supporters of education. It's just all about our noble profession, the most noble and important profession in the world. I hope you all agree with me. I'm sure these two do. So I have with me on my left Ms. Bunmi Lawson, and you'll be introducing yourself in a minute. And I have on my right Mrs. Bola Kalejaiye. You would also please introduce yourself. So we'll start with you, Ms. Lawson.
Thank you very much. My name is Bunmi Lawson, and it's really an honor to be here to talk about education. It's something I'm really passionate about. I'm the CEO of Edfin Microfinance Bank. We provide education finance. We support schools so that they can expand, but also parents and students so that they have access to quality education. Because we believe that if people have access to quality education, then the potential that we have in Nigeria will actually be realized. So we feel that human potential will be realized with proper access to quality education.
It's awesome. Thank you for all you do for the sector. Thank you. Thank you. Mrs. Kalejaiye.
Okay, Bola Kalejaiye. Before, if you asked me what I do, I would say I'm a teacher. I used to say that all the time, and I still say that. But I guess it's more than teaching. Now I call myself a childhood advocate because I do a bunch of things that aren't related to teaching, but are all related to children. I have taught, and I am very often still in the classroom, in and out. I teach teachers now, at least the teachers in the work that I do. I'm the lead learner at Discovery House Montessori School. And I've also done a few other things related to children, Mindscapes Children's Museum, Baraka Children's Organization, teacher training, Montessori teacher training program. So in essence, I'm a childhood advocate.
Awesome. You can see we're just going to have a great time today, and we're going to be learning a lot from our experts here. So, World Teachers Day around the corner. That's on the 5th of October. And I believe the title or the theme for this year's World Teachers Day is the teacher we need for the education we want. It's also looking at the global imperative to reverse the teacher shortage. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. And I'm so glad that at least a day has been set aside to celebrate teachers. I wish we had more than a day to celebrate teachers. I was saying to both of you before that, in the US, you would see that veterans are celebrated. Anywhere you see a veteran, they'll say, thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. I feel it's something that we should adopt, regarding teachers. If anywhere we see a teacher, don't let's wait for the World Teachers Day. Thank you for your service. Instead of, I'm sure you've seen WhatsApp messages or this WhatsApp videos that would show where a teacher wants to get married to a girl and then goes to the girl's father and introduces himself as a teacher, and the man says, will you get out of my house? You're not able to support my child. That shouldn't be the reaction, because teaching is such an important profession. So I'm glad that we're celebrating them today, but I think they should be celebrated. We should be celebrated every day, because I'm a teacher as well. So we go into the into the theme for today. And I'm going to start with you, our lead learner, Bola. So UNESCO says the teachers we need for the education we want. And my first question would be, what's the education we want? You know, how, when we're looking at the education we want, education reimagined, education that's transformed, education we want, what do you think it means? And can you explain what you believe would be the education we want?
Okay. When I think about what you just said, the educators we need for the education we want.
Yes.
There's this word "we" there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's a collective word, and it's an assumption that we all want the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's perhaps where the point where everything starts to diverge, because when I ask, if I can sit down at this table with a bunch of school heads and we can talk about what we want, and I don't think we'll all sound the same. So that word "we" is a stumbling block. If we're going to look at it from a national level, when a nation has set a target and has decided that these are the kinds of qualities that we're looking for in the adults in our society. This is who I would like to be my neighbor. This is who I'd like to be my spouse. This is who I'd like to be employed by, or I'd like to employ. When you start looking at the adult world, which is where education is leading, is a means to an end, not an end in itself. And then we have those values shared. Then I think we can talk about the education that we want. If we don't have that stated and shared, then we're going to have to start talking about the education we want from our own vision as maybe lead learners or people who start schools, because when you start a school, there's something in your heart that's driving you to do it.
Yes.
You know, they say it's a noble profession. People want to start schools. Sometimes I'm thinking, they said there's money in this thing. Somebody should show me. Must be something that I don't know, you know.
Where is it?
Where is the money? So it's not the money. There's something that pulls us to it, and it's not the same thing for all of us. Some people, it's academic excellence that we want for the children that we graduate. Some of us, we have a vision of a type of human being, and then we try and create the school that we think will produce that human being. So in a nutshell, the "we" depends on who the "we" refers to, and if I could find a nexus in terms of what is it that's at the center that we could all call common, I think it's that we want successful human beings. Whether that success comes from their values or their knowledge or, you know, their academic competence or whatever, I think we want successful human beings. So what success looks like to each group of people might differ, but I think that may be an aligning word that we can all get behind. So I think, you know, the education we want is one successful human beings on whatever scale.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely, I agree with you. It's so Aristotle says students to flourish, to thrive, to be successful, and that should be the goal of education. You know, it's upsetting that we really don't have this common vision for education in Nigeria. Or if we do, it's not something that's become a shared vision. Because so far, we're not all sure what exactly it is. I think that's still, there's that problem there. But I feel that sometimes what I just focus on then is the SDG. You know, at least we know that goal, you know, focusing on quality education, inclusive and equitable education. So, but so true, you know, value-based education, everybody, and with those values, get the value and get the teaching and learning right, they'll be successful, and so many other things, you know. So I'm going to go to you, Ms. Lawson. What are your thoughts on that? And also, we mentioned what kind of teachers we need.
Okay. So yeah, to me, education, I feel that the outcome that we desire from education is to create, I call it valuable citizens. You know, so they are valuable to family, friends, and society. So that's how I just sort of listed that. The first thing,
and
your
the world.
family wants to, yes, society means the
generally,
world. Yes, that's what I mean.
Yeah. Just
so
yes.
that first of all, your family wants to be proud that you know you abide by their values and whatever they define as success, and then your friends as well. You want to have friends. You want to feel that you are included.
Yes.
You know, and then society at large, and that could be, you know, as you define it, it could be just your street all the way to, you know, the global community.
Yes.
So those are the things that I feel, and so each person has different definitions, as Bola said. And what does that mean to be that? And I think when you define education as broadly as the outcome that you desire, then from the child, from, you know, people living with disability to those who are fully abled, everyone can be a valuable member of society, you know. So that to me is what education should seek to achieve. And that's how I feel that teachers too should then be trained to say, okay, what is it in society that we have defined as a successful outcome for education? And as you pointed out, unfortunately, I feel that Nigeria hasn't defined one. And that to me is because even a national strategy has not been defined. What do we want Nigeria to be in future? What do we want to be known for? You know, initially I would just say that, okay, yes, we are the top oil producing country, maybe the most populous black country. But what else? You know, what do we want to be known? So like now, if you say China, we say, oh, they're the manufacturing base for the world. What is it that Nigeria wants? And when you define that, then you align your education and every other thing to that. So because you don't have that, it's difficult to then define education that way. So that to me is the foundation of how do we define a national strategy for Nigeria, and then align our education to that, so that you focus on the teachers, the schools, even the category of schools. So for instance, if you say, oh, we want to be the creative hub, then you place more emphasis in creativity and all the things that are required right from childhood, early childhood, all the way to university. So those are the kinds of things that I feel is missing.
Thank you. Beautiful. So teachers we need.
Yes. So teachers, UNESCO says that for primary education, sub-Saharan Africa and Nigeria is, I think, more than half, I think, or 20% of sub-Saharan is West Africa. So that we need 6.8 million additional teachers for primary education. For secondary, 10 million.
Wow.
Over 10 million. So where are we going to get it? And in that ratio, they said they use 1 to 40. Because I know that that's 1 teacher to 40 students. So in Nigeria, I know that we aim for 1 to 20, 1 to 25, roughly. So it may even mean that we need ×2 the number of teachers that they've actually advocated. So where are we going to get those teachers from? How, you know, and how do we transform education so that teaching is more effective? You know, so I feel that technology has to play a part. The way we teach today has to change. We are teaching, you know, a child that is in primary school today is going to be in the workplace 20 years to come. What will the workplace then look like? Whereas we are still teaching, you know, work that is relevant for the past 20 years. So are we really bringing up the children with the skills that they need? And if you look at the rapid change, you know, sometimes I think about the rapid changes that have happened even to me in my lifetime. From there was no phone to now there's mobile phone, you know, money transfer, all those kind of things. You weren't taught those at school. You have to learn. So the ability to continue to learn becomes even more important than just saying, okay, this is the body of work I know, and I'm applying this body of work to things. It needs to constantly change, and so people need to also have the ability to self-learn. So they themselves, in a way, I would say they become teachers of themselves, you know, and not just relying on teacher in the classroom. So there's a lot that needs to, I would say, change, and I think teacher training is critical, you know, in achieving those goals.
Thank you so much, ladies. I totally agree with you, because the fact is that quality education at this point, we don't know the jobs that will exist later on. We don't have a clear direction, you know, as to what the vision of education is, but yet we have schools and we have students in the schools, and we must prepare them adequately to be able to face whatever they need in future. And as we say, nemo dat quod non habet. You cannot give what you do not have. So teachers too must then know exactly what these children need to know, and there must be an embodiment of that thing so that they can then pass it on to the children. And I dare say parents as well, but we'll talk about that later. So now, things have changed, as you said. There's a lot of technology going on. Quite a number of teachers are just inflexible. It's difficult for, maybe sometimes it's age, and they feel, really, do I need to? We've just learned about maybe using the interactive whiteboard. Now we have to now use interactive TVs. Now there's artificial intelligence, there's virtual reality, there's augmented reality, and all that. Bola, in your school, how do you get, the mindset of your teachers to be in line with the realities of today?
Okay, so I had some tough learning experiences as a school head. And one of probably the biggest thing I have learned in working with adults is that I am not, permit me to use Christian language, it's very hard for me to not talk this in my faith. I'm not the Holy Spirit. So I cannot make a person into a certain image. And so I then had to sit down and say to myself, this is what we want. These are the outcomes that we want as a school. We need the adults in the children's environment, especially because I work with younger children, to be, just like you said, an embodiment of those values. And I cannot make them what they are not. They are not, Yorubas have a proverb. For those who are not Yoruba speaking, you can't bend dry fish. It's going to break. So I totally agree with that and figured for the kind of dynamic program that we run, we need adults who are very dynamic, who can shift thinking very quickly. Therefore, you need to hire them.
So it's a point of hiring.
It's at the point of hiring. So these are our values for our children. Therefore, these are the values that we're looking for in teachers. Therefore, how do we find these values in the people that we employ? I am not a subscriber. It's very painful and very expensive experience trying to bring people in and having some program for making them like technology. No, I want to know your relationship with technology before I hire. And maybe not technology, but maybe I'm more interested in whether you're a flexible thinker.
Yes.
So I would never hire somebody without doing a personality inventory. How do you approach change? How do you face challenges? And those are the kinds of things that, if we introduce you to a smart board last year, and then this year it's a smart TV, you are the kind of person who has the tendency to make the shift. You are curious, you are gregarious, you are not likely to want to today, they want to kill you in this school, because it's hard being a teacher. You are going to wake up early. A teacher doesn't have weekends or holidays. You are constantly teaching. The children are constantly in your soul. You are overwhelmed. You get home, you have your own family, you're sitting in traffic for hours, you have lessons to plan, you have children to assess and all that. When are you going to have time to learn new technology? So let's get you past that point where there's already resistance, because you're somebody who by nature embraces change. Then we can take it from there. And I think also the school structure needs to support. I think we should stop asking teachers to be in classroom with children until 4 o'clock and then go home and then be asking them when they are going to learn new technology. They shouldn't have to use their personal time to do it. We know that teaching is demanding and it's not a job, it's a calling. But if I had a teacher who was going to carry the work of education after school, let it be the children she's carrying, let it not be technology. And so make the time. If teachers need an hour every week, build it into the weekly schedule so that they don't have to go home and do it. So make the time available. Hire the people who are already inclined to do the things that you are needing. And then I think it's...
Beautiful, because you're so right. Even if you were to employ people who already know technology, something else can come up.
Exactly.
So it's really about the person, someone who is not, who is adaptable, who's not resistant to change, and things like that. So I think your answer is just spot on. Ms. Lawson, what are the policies that you feel we need to bring in or to change in order to elevate our profession? He said, notice I said, we're claiming you. Just before you go on, as children, they would nobody wants to become a teacher. So what policies do we need to change? What do we need to do to make this profession more attractive?
Yeah. So first of all, I would say in terms of the profession itself, how do you become a teacher? And at least when I was younger, most people who do education, it sort of seems as if maybe you didn't mix your cutoff for the actual course you wanted to do.
Yeah.
They push you into the education department, if you get to university. Or NCE, maybe you didn't get the number of WAEC subjects that you're supposed to use to get to university, so they push you there. So that's the first thing for me. I think we need to define what are the entry requirements for teachers, so that it is not seen as if, is that a last resort or a plan D. I don't want to say plan B, because you've gone through A, B, C, D, then ahead. So that's one thing I feel that in terms of, so we need to elevate the profession. And I will also say that I would support continuous certification. So like when I look at the accountancy profession, which you have this mandatory continuous program that you must do at the number of credits and things like that. So I would say that teachers too should need to go through that. I think there's the teacher head that does that, but I don't know how compulsory it is for all, mandatory for all teachers to do that. So I would say those are some of the things I would say. But also, how do we elevate the way society sees teachers? I think is also important. So I have proposed in various places that I've spoken that, for instance, even government can say, okay, if you're a teacher, you don't pay tax. But I don't think it's the taxation of the small teacher's salary
that would make a difference.
So that kind of thing. Or, if you have a teacher's card, you have access to the boss, government boss, and some privileges that teachers really should have. But I also feel that we need to also have volunteer teachers, so some of the things I've also advocated is like take the NYSC, for instance. But during that time when they're in camp, they should actually be teaching them how to teach, so that they can then be deployed to schools and they are able to, at least those who are interested, and then those who excel during that time are the ones that are now deployed to school. Not that you make it compulsory for everybody, because some people don't really like teaching, so those are some of the changes. Then even volunteer teaching, after you've retired, is there a quick course that people could go through that, teaching them how to teach, so that if you're interested in either primary, secondary, even university, so even with university, the link between, they call it town and gown. How do you link people who have practical experience, so that when you come out of university, what you've learned is relevant in place of work? So those are some of the few changes I feel that can be done. And of course, pay. I know teachers talk about pay.
And rightly so, to be honest. In Nigeria, teachers are, they're very poorly paid. And so thank you so much for that. Mrs. Kalejaiye, what would you propose that universities as faculties of education, colleges of education, is there anything you feel that can be brought into the program, education program, to prepare our teachers for the world of today? Are there things that we're not focusing on right now? Because I think it all starts from pre-service before we then do in-service trainings and then CPDs, but I'm not sure how relevant the curriculum used for our pre-service training is, and of course we also have fast track, ways to get teachers into the profession.
I think that we have a huge challenge sometimes when you. I was at an event once, and it was lunch break, and there was a really long queue to the buffet, and there was this gentleman who had gone to the buffet, and he then set his plate down in front of him, and that plate was a mountain of food. We had everything. I don't think he quite understood the concept that it's a buffet, you can go several times, or maybe he thought the food
mix and
would be
match.
out. So the thing, unfortunately for him, his seat was next to where I was standing on the queue. And I was really curious. I'm like, where is he going to attack this plate from? And I feel like the education sector here is like that. Estimated our projected population about now is over 200 million. Estimated 45 to 50% of those people are under the age of 15. So it's a massive number of learners. How do you tackle that? When you say the stats you quoted about how many teachers are needed, it's like assembly line. You want to shoot them into the classrooms as fast as you can. So it's a huge thing. Where do you tackle it from? Who are the people in the colleges of education preparing teachers pre-service? What's their experience? You kept saying something. You can't give what you don't have. Well, the people sending them to preparing them to be teachers, what's their experience of education? So it's a domino. It's a chain thing of just dysfunction being. There's a domino effect of that dysfunction, and I also feel like we keep trying to iterate or titrate a solution. It's a seismic shift in the whole system, and we have to be ready for that radical shift in the way we do it. I wanted to talk about the question you asked her, just because something I've agonized over. There are only two reasons anybody will want to be a teacher. It's your calling and you are not ready to do something else, or the pay is pretty good. You're either a missionary. Missionaries are usually after the money. They just want to. They just do it somehow, or the pay is really good. And when we look at those countries that we're proud of the education sector, the pay is really good. Or you're a missionary, but we know something about missionaries. The community that they're in takes care of them. Look at what's happening in South Korea. Why on earth would I want to be a teacher in South Korea when those who are teachers are jumping to their deaths? So it's a societal paradigm shift, and that paradigm shift is on a seismic level. And I think if it doesn't happen that way, we're going to keep having these titrations and iterations in the midst of an exploding population, and the problem is just going to get worse and worse and worse. Colleges of education, and look at the people who are teaching. I've had people come to where a Montessori school. I've had people come who took Montessori training, and one of the first things I always want to know is who taught you Montessori and how many years did they spend in the classroom? Because it's not a theory.
Of course.
It has a theory, but it is not a theory. Like, can you do the job? Could the person tell you what to do if a child walks into class in an environment where everybody has freedom to choose what to do, and this child just doesn't want to do anything? Has he or she experienced it? Can he nurture you? So I think that we need to look at the people, and if we can't shift them, we need to maybe go to this. There's a whole lot about tech and global. There are people all around the globe who don't want to teach, who don't want to be in the classroom, but maybe they've been there and they're ready to give back, and we can just get out of the classrooms. I think that all our universities should just be converted into timeshare spaces, and all learning should move online. But we have, the hybrid time, and then we'll be able to educate massive multiples of the numbers that. So whatever it is, it's not to titrate what we're currently doing. We need to burn the whole thing and redesign. Seriously. But can we afford to do that when we have so many learners out there? I don't know. Can we afford not to, though?
It's actually, very well said. It's a tough one, because it really starts from there. And, how can they help when they themselves, they say the worst kind of ignorance is when you don't know that you don't know.
Absolutely.
So they're going to fight us tooth and nail. And to be honest, that's how I got into teacher training, because I just thought, look, I need to fix this thing from there. So that's really how we got into teacher training. All right, so let's talk. I know we have just a few minutes left. Teacher shortage. What do we do? There's the jackpot thing going on. There's domestic poaching going on. There's, so really there will be, if not now, at some point in time, you're going to need teachers in your schools, not to talk of in the country, and eventually in the world, because it's not a profession that people are running into. So, how can we leverage on technology? I think Bola kind of touched on it a bit. What would you say? Can we, that's Ms. Lawson, what can we do using technology to bridge this gap?
So there's a lot of things that are currently going on in the EdTech space, education technology, and quite innovative too. So like, for instance, I think a lot of people have started with the private lessons. So now the lesson teachers don't go into your house, but there's like pre-recorded, lessons.
Yes.
But there's a way to chat and talk to a teacher if you're stuck, and then so I think that enables maybe one teacher reach a large number of people, and I think that that's one of the critical things that we need to do. I know there are studies that say online learning cannot be the only way, so you still need that physical, maybe even one-on-one interaction, but we still have to use that, because one of the things that I feel in terms of using technology is just the access to knowledge that it gives. Once you have that, like even check what's going on with artificial intelligence, with ChatGPT, and the questions you can have access to information all over the world. We need to bring that into education in such a way that is actually teaching. There's a company too that brought in virtual reality, and so for biology, for instance, you are actually seeing the body parts and everything. So it's not that you won't need a teacher, but I just sort of feel that it expands the reach of the teacher. So that way, so where we are talking about 1 to 25, you may be even saying one teacher to 100, because you've been able to use technology to elevate access to knowledge. But that, when you have bottlenecks and things like that, then there's a teacher that you still can reach out to that now gives you that one-on-one time. So those are some of the things. Then I also feel maybe we need to then open up teaching than just only the professionals. I keep feeling that, take for instance me, I'm not a teacher, but I just sort of feel that, okay, if you ask me to now come and teach accounting, and I've gone for maybe a 3-month teacher training course, I would be able to teach. So what are people doing to also volunteer? And I also talked about the NYC and all of that, train people so that they can actually still teach. And then parents too, the community also needs to know that they too, in a way, are teachers, because they say it takes a village to train a child. So what are those things that we can, make people become effective teachers, so that it's not just only those who do it full time, but that we have other ways to teach. So the example I even use in my office too, if you go online, you want to learn how to use Excel. The Indians, for instance, have so many programs on YouTube that teaches you how to use Excel, so you don't really need one teacher sitting down there. So those are the kinds of things that I feel we need to do in education.
Thank you. Yes,
if I can say
please.
something there. I read something recently. It was just a joke that talked about how we are kind of circling back to the beginnings of civilization. So once upon a time, people used pictographs. The Egyptians used hieroglyphs. The Hebrew script used pictographs, and then we went to letters and words, and now with all these emojis we're circling back. And I think it's happening in a bunch of places, because education cannot continue to be about giving knowledge to human beings. You talked about artificial intelligence. So if education is not about giving knowledge, then what will it be? And it goes back to the original purpose for education. When people educated their children, they were educated in families primarily. If you think back 2,000-3,000 years ago, how many children on the planet went to school? Well, societies developed, they were taught on the laps of their parents and on the job with their parents. If your parent was a mason, you were going to end up being a mason, and your life was an internship until you married. And so, redefining the role of teachers in terms of what will teachers do with students if it's not to give them knowledge? You talked earlier about social emotional learning. And it comes back to the original purpose of that word. It is to produce a certain type of human beings for life, for family, for national development, and for the progress of humanity. Now, what kind of teacher do you need for that? Knowledge remains something that you can get on the internet, but I don't know that you can shape human beings with technology. So both have to be looked at.
Thank you. Just love listening to the two of you. I absolutely agree. So teachers, we might need less, but we still need them. We still need them, but a particular kind of teachers who can use technology. And going back to what it used to be in the olden days, because the situation has totally changed in the world. Look at what happened during COVID. The parents could not wait to get the children out because they couldn't do their work. And then social skills, developing the social skills, children developing social skills. So that, I think, still makes schools relevant, teachers relevant. It's just the kind of teacher that they are. I know that you need to run off. Just one or two more. Okay, so as we round up, how do we support teachers' mental and physical health? Teachers go through a lot. You know, as you mentioned, they can't switch off. Even if you want them to. I'm constantly asking my teachers, how can I support my leaders as well? How can I support you? You know, I'll say to them, please, your help. But that child in your class, at 12 o'clock, you're actually even dreaming about that child. So how can you help teachers' mental health? Anyone would like to take?
Yeah,
yes. Okay. How do you support their mental health?
Okay, if I can shoot a few things off the top of my head.
Yes.
If they're in school a lot and carrying the school a lot, it means school is like a second home.
Yes.
Let's make it feel like home. Let's make it such that their needs can be met. They can. My dream school has a gym. The teachers will say, "Bola, we're working all the time. Where do we have time to go to the gym?" I'm like, you can't afford not to go to the gym because you need to stay healthy. It has a shower where they can take a shower after they've done the gym. It has. You make provisions for them to be able to eat in school. I mean, you just make school a place that they love to come to in distress. You let a teacher know when you are losing it and you need to walk out of the classroom. Feel free to walk out of the classroom. Just call admin and say, I've had it. I'm full. Have counselors attached to your school. School pays them. So if a teacher is going through a tough time, doesn't want to talk to you, can go to a counselor. I played around with it and I realized that having a counselor in the school will not work because the teacher will wonder if they're coming to tell you, the head of school, everything that they're going through. So be ready to pay for medical insurance for them to see a therapist if they need to. And just know that they're most often doing the best that they know how to do. And if it's not working, let it be, how can I help you? As much as possible. I mean, you do have the few, you know, foxes that spoil the vine, but I think by far, considering how low it is paid and how hard they work, most teachers are really doing the best that they can. And I think most of all, support teachers when they're dealing with parents.
Exactly.
Support teachers when they're color code your parents. I mean, yes, color code your parents and let the it's not in a derogatory or a negative manner, but a teacher who just takes over a new class needs to know these are some parents who I might need admin with me when I'm having a conversation with them. They are my red parents.
You call it raggy. Red, you know, amber, and green.
These are my green parents. I can ask them for support with a red parent and refer. So we just have to be intentional about letting them know that they're valued, they're supported, and just putting structures in place so that they know that they have an outlet whenever they're feeling overwhelmed.
Thank you so much. I wish we could go on and on and on. I've thoroughly enjoyed this time. Would you just, last words, what would you like to say?
Okay, just to add something to the mental health teachers, you know, I know that finance is a key issue, so EdFin also provides finance for teachers.
Yes,
so schools too should be able to, you know, have something so that they can make ends meet, because I think that's also one of the key challenges that teachers face. But you know, to me, teachers are critical. I just sort of feel that we probably need to redefine what we mean by teachers, so that parents become better teachers, the society to become, you know, better in teaching. Because people look at society and also learn values and you know, things from that. So those are some of the things that I would say about that. Education is really critical. Nigeria itself needs a clear education policy. So even starting from a state, you know, to the national policy, I do think that we have to ask government to focus so much more on education. In fact, even the allocation to education is far below UNESCO's definition of what it should be in Nigeria, where we contribute put less than 1% of GDP into education over the years.
I just
you know,
don't know,
so
why can't we just get it? We say these things over and over and over.
Maybe
and
that's the problem.
still, yeah, but
And we're saying it, but
what
we
do
don't
we
know
do?
why it is the way it is.
Yeah, but why is it the way it
that's
is?
it. That's the key question, isn't it?
Because the
Why?
people know, they know what happens in other countries. They know what to do.
So why
And we
aren't they
know the
doing it?
importance of education. So honestly, it beats me. Every time I think about it, it's just very, just very confusing. All right, Mrs. Kalejaiye, what would be the last words that you would like to say to us?
I'd like to say to teachers, there's teacher heaven. I'm serious.
But there's scripture.
There's got to be teacher heaven.
And there's a scripture that also talks about teaching. Anyway, please go on.
Yes, and so I'm saying to teachers, hang in there. I'm saying hang in there, and every life you touch counts, and maybe that's your reward. And I pray that you find creative ways to supplement your income so that you can do what you really love doing. I think that's it.
It's amazing. I feel that entrepreneurial mindset for teachers very key, so that they have other ways of making money. And you mentioned schools could also introduce their teachers to microfinance banks like EdTalk. We can make short links.
And then make sure they have the time. I think we're trapped in some kind of vicious cycle. Because parents are leaving children in school longer because they're under stress to work. And then the teachers are staying longer and are not having time for that supplemental income. Something significant has to change. And the whole society ends up in the classroom.
But something like that, then parents just have to come and pick their children up earlier. You just have to insist, because teachers too have a life.
Absolutely.
They have families. So it's just also being...
But that could also be an entrepreneurial opportunity for teachers. So maybe like after school or places where...
But they're in school. What you're saying is that if I'm in school till 6, I can't even then go and do my after school thing anymore.
Yeah, so no, the school now has to insist that you have to pick up your children by 3. And so therefore, all those children, if their parents can come, then have to join the after school. And not that it's free.
So that's one way to do it.
6.
Yeah.
They can stay, teachers can stay, but can schools put their money where their mouth is and all after school programs, do a co-op.
Yes.
After school programs are run by teachers for teachers. They get all the income that comes from. Just pay the school for the diesel.
Yes.
And they let them keep the income.
But that's actually most of the time. I think that what we do is like maybe 60-40 or 70. Most going to the teachers. That's the truth. But then we insist that because of the diesel, the clients, but it could be another source of income for them, isn't it?
Yes.
Teacher heaven. I love that. Teacher heaven. Lord.
Yes.
Lord. Thank you for that
heaven.
Thank you so much, Miss Lawson, Mrs. Kalejaiye. Thank you so much. And I hope that when we invite you again, you'll be here. Thank you.
Education is our passion.
It's your passion, and I know that. All right, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless you. Thank you, sis. Oh my God.